All right, so everybody, welcome to our Cyberops class for this week, which is the week of the 15th. Couple things. First off, we're getting down to the nitty gritty, folks. Class officially ends 5/5/2021. Okay, so we got basically a little less than a month till class ends. It's hard to believe we're that close to May, isn't it? I think that's absolutely amazing. But here's one of the things to be aware of. Class officially ends on 5/5. However, I am not going to turn off on that day Neticat access or NetLabs access. In other words, I won't be turning that off on 5/5. If you don't get everything done by 5/5, that's fine. However, you will lose access to canvas.stanley.edu. I'm going to ask that sometime in the next couple weeks before class ends, that you do come in here and go to our class, and it should be on the bottom left here, course evaluations. If you will do your course evaluation for me. I never have course evaluations, quite honestly, because I never really stress it. You're getting emails in your Stanley email address asking you to do these course evaluations. In fact, I think they're giving away gift cards if you do it. But if you will log into canvas.stanley.edu and then do your course evaluations, that would be wonderful. If you can't do it or don't do it, I'm not going to have a heart attack about it. And quite honestly, they're not going to fire me over that. But if you could do it, that would be great also. So if you get a chance before 5/5, I'm going to ask that you go to Canvas, not Canvas, but Canvas. Stanley, golly, I can't type today. It's been one of those days, folks. And do the course evaluation. All right.
I haven't gotten any links to that. I don't even know if I remember how to log into this. So that's with your email account, right?
Yeah. Remember, it's your Stanley username, or actually your username is your Stanley email address. So it's your first initial last name plus 4 digits of your student ID. And then your whatever password you set up once you logged in the first time. So that's what it is. And if you need to do a password recovery, I can help you with that too. But you're going to need this anyway if you take another course with us, because you got to get back into Canvas to do that. But be aware that's our end date, and you will lose access to Canvas after that day. I'm not going to turn these off though. I will tell you the next round of classes begins on June 2nd. So anything that you have left to complete, I would like for you to have it done before then. And be aware that, again, I'm teaching 5 classes over the summer. I'm in the middle of a bunch of classes now. So if you need the final exam turned on and it's not on, then you're going to have to email me and let me know, but it should be on for now. So speaking of which, what do you need to finish to complete this course? One is the modules, obviously, and the module exams, which most of you have been working on that already. Then you have at the very bottom, you have the course feedback, which this is the Cisco course feedback, which all of you know you have to do this before you can even do the final exam. If you try to do the final exam and you haven't done the end of course feedback, it will bark at you and say, please do the end of course feedback first, and then it will let you take the final exam. Those of you who are just now, and again, one of the things I haven't shown in this class, because I assume, and I probably shouldn't do that, I assume you know about creating activations, but inside of all Cisco courses, if there are written exams that are part of the course, you have to create activations for those exams. And so what I did earlier in this class is I actually activated the exams for you. So there are exams, all the chapter exams are on, and the final exam is also on until 5/6/2021. So the actual chapter exam is on, and there is a certification practice exam that is on for you. So for your students, if you're teaching this class, you've never taught Cisco before, once your students are in the class, very important point there, and that's why I don't turn on exams the first day of class. When you create an activation, it's only for those students enrolled in the class at that moment. So I'll wait until everybody redeems their seat tokens, then I create the activations. And you'll see we have a certification practice exam. That one is 100%. Oh, actually, the feedback is currently expired, so let me create that one. This one we can only do for 30 days for some crazy reason, and then we can do all the other ones for more than that, which I don't really understand. I'm just gonna go ahead and do it for that. And then the other ones we can do for more than that, but that allows us to do that. I don't, as far as the class is concerned, you don't have to take that certification practice exam if you don't want to. But obviously, if you're going to go take the exam, then I strongly recommend you do that certification practice exam. I will tell you this, on the final, make a 70 or higher, okay? Because if you make a 70 or higher on this, if you make a 70 plus, you get a 60% off, excuse me, your instructors, 70% off discount voucher. Okay.
It comes out to $90.
Yep, it's pretty cheap. Well, cheaper. Let's not say it's cheap, but it's cheaper than it could be.
Better than 300.
Yeah, oh yeah, a whole lot better.
I was gonna say, whole heck of a lot cheaper than a SAN cert.
Yeah, you ain't kidding. So it's a good deal. So make a 70 or higher. Don't make 100. You read into that what you want, but make sure you get that discount because you need to get it. It is nice now that the Cyberops Associate is a single exam instead of the 2 exams like it used to be, which I am very, very happy about that. Back when it was CCNA Cyberops, it was actually 2 exams. So what you need to get finished for me, 1 is all your module exams, 2, this final written exam, which you need to do. And then there is a skills assessment. And that skills assessment is actually inside of NetLabs, and it's right here. And this is that hands-on test. So when you go into NetLabs and you go to do a lab, and you schedule a lab for yourself, and you've got our class down here, the Cyberops Associate, you'll click right here, and then you will schedule your Cyberops Associate and take it. I would go ahead and make sure when you do it that you give yourself 4 hours. You're not going to need 4 hours, but go ahead and do 4 hours and fill out the documentation. And then you can actually, for this hands-on skills exam, I've got an upload, so you can just upload it. So I've got some folks I got 2 that need grading. So just be aware that I do have a place for you to upload it once you complete it. So you'll upload your completed document, but you do the lab out here in NetLabs. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So you got a little bit left to do here. You don't have a whole lot left in class, but there's a good little amount that you need to get finished up with. All right. Now you will see, as mentioned by classmate, you do have in here, there are some other things that are available. For instance, they have in here the Cyberops challenge. You're welcome to do that if you want, but it's not required. You may want to play with it just so you know what your students are going to have if you want them to do that. But for us, we're going to do our skills assessment on NetLabs. Okay. The other thing I want y'all to be aware of, again, is we've used NetLabs for our labs, but this class can be taught completely on your own PC, just using VirtualBox. So be aware that VirtualBox has the VM that you can download, or the VMs you can download for this class. I mentioned that at the beginning of class, but I want to mention it again just so everyone's aware. If you don't have NetLabs, you can still teach Cyberops. You can teach it and have your students download the images and download VirtualBox locally. So, sorry folks, hold on 1 second. I'm just going to. Okay, I'm back. So be aware that we use NetLabs, but it is not absolutely required for this particular course. The other thing I want you to be aware of is once you finish this course, you will be able to go to resources, course resources. You will be able to go into the Cyberops Associate. Cyberops Associate. This thing reboots. I'm gonna come unglued. I hope I didn't click the wrong button there. And then you will be able to actually go into English, and you'll have all of the different things that are available to you. For instance, I haven't taught off these PowerPoints at all, but I could if I wanted to. So I've shown them to you. But all these will be available once you are accredited and able to teach the course. So any questions on what we've got left to do? Or, well, what you've got left to do? You see, this class is, my spring class is already way down there now with all the other stuff going on. Okay, and we've already looked at these. We've looked at some of those. All right, any other questions? Oops. None? Y'all know all, see all, hear all. Any questions on, I was going to start access control actually. Any questions on this, on access control? Do you understand the concepts of the CIA triad, which is out there? It's kind of funny because a lot of times they don't want to use CIA because it has negative connotations in cybersecurity overseas, obviously. Questions about these control methods, discretionary access control, where ACLs are actually controlled by the individual owners of the data, versus MAC, which is where we assign a level to it, very similar to what you'd see in a military type thing where you do top secret, public. Role-based, using it, making different roles that are assigned security privileges. And then we have attribute and rule-based, and then last time-based, which you actually, if you've been involved with security for a while, there was even a thing called time-based access control list. Any of you remember that way back in the day? We've had somebody else show up. Who else is here? See all my participants. Our Joseph's here, Gail, Paul. Hey, Paul. Paul's here.
Hey there.
Any questions on these access control methods? I would expect to see this on the exam in some way, form, or fashion, because this shows up in almost every security exam in some form or fashion. Now, AAA, let's talk about AAA, authentication, authorization, and accounting. First off, before you can have authorization or accounting, you must have authentication. In other words, I can't allow you to do something if I don't know who you are, and I can't keep up with what you're doing if I don't know who you are. So authorization and accounting really rely upon authentication. And authentication is, are users who they say they are? There's multiple ways to authenticate, obviously. Passwords, we have learned, are 100% inefficient. Even two-factor authentication is something that, while helps, is still not the be-all, end-all. What's another thing can be used for authentication? We know passwords, PINs, those types of things. What else can be used?
Is multi-factor authentication a type of authentication?
It is. It's just taking multiple different things. So in other words, requiring you to have a password and a PIN that gets sent to you.
Biometrics, fingerprints, retina scan.
Retina scans. I had a funny thing. I was teaching this a Security Plus class to a bunch of folks from the Air Force, and again, I don't know the validity of this story or not. But what they were saying is, have you ever heard of a man trap?
Yep.
All right.
Been through plenty of them.
All right. So in a man trap, and Texas language, person trap, but it's basically a corridor where there's a door on one side you can get in, and then on the other side you got to pass one security clearance to get through the one door. Then in the middle you got to pass another security clearance to get through the other door. Well, evidently on some Air Force base that was using biometrics and using retinal scans, there was just random female service members were not able to get through the retina scan, and they couldn't figure out what was going on. And they found out that a female's retina changes slightly when she becomes pregnant. So they had to do some work there because people were coming to work and finding out they were pregnant, didn't know they were pregnant. And again, that's what one of the Air Force guys told me and said, hey, you know, we had to change or at least modify that process to make it work.
It's not so much the retina changes itself, it's that there's some women have I actually had the condition. Basically you get like fat, this is gonna sound awful, but you have like fat globules in your eye, so to speak. Oh, what did they call it? But anyway, yeah, it is actually a thing.
It is
Yep.
a thing. Okay, so they didn't lie to me.
They weren't telling you a story.
They weren't telling me a story. Well, that is interesting though, because you think about biometrics and how you've seen people try to fool the biometric. Anybody fooled the ones on the laptops by using a piece of tape? Trying to get your thumbprint with a piece of tape and then trying to use that for a laptop. We've tried that. I hadn't been able to make it work.
I'm using one right now that it works on.
Oh, really? The other thing here recently, all of us that anybody that uses face unlocking for their phone, nobody's able to get it to work unless they've redone it for a mask. Because I'll look at mine and go, oh wait, man, it doesn't work. In fact, a lot of, obviously for security reasons, you probably shouldn't ever use your face to unlock, because then someone, all they had to do is grab your phone and point it at your face if they've got you under duress, and then get in your device. So, but yeah, authentication can happen by various means. I do think multi-factor authentication is at least making things harder on our adversaries. You think about it, if you've got your account set up where you've got to have a password and then they have to text you a PIN or some other number, someone's got to go through a fairly complicated process. They're going to have to get your phone, they're going to have to know your password. Is it possible? Of course it is. But you're going to have to be a pretty high level target for somebody to be going after you in that respect. AAA finds and uses some type of authentication method, and then once you are authenticated, it allows you to be authorized to do certain things. Now, in the world of Cisco, in fact, I just did a lecture on module 2. If you're subscribed to my YouTube channel, you saw I did module 2 of the Introduction to Networks yesterday, or day before yesterday, and I talk about the different privilege levels in Cisco. So when you go into a Cisco router, there are different privilege levels from 0 to 15, basically. Well, with certain types of Cisco software, it used to be called Cisco Works, now it's their DNA Center and all, but you can make it where when you log in, a particular user only has access or authorization to use 4 or 5 commands. And so by authenticating them, you then authorize them, and then you can account for how long they were on a particular device or using that device. So the analogy they use is who you are is your credit card number, authorization, how much you can spend, and then what did you spend it on. So we do have local authentication, local AAA. That's where we use a local username and password. And then obviously we support Cisco devices support both TACX and Radius. TACX used to be proprietary, now it's pretty much open. Those two particular things, TACX Plus and Radius, you can see that they are similar, but obviously TACX uses TCP. The way to remember that, if you ever asked on exam, is TACX begins with a T, Radius has a U, so it's UDP versus TCP. TACX uses bidirectional challenge, whereas Radius is unidirectional. Radius combines the authorization and authentication function, but has very detailed accounting functions. One of the reasons for that is Radius was used for dial-up, so accounting was used for that. And so TACX and Radius are 2 different ways that you can do server-based authentication. The big thing that really for us, it's hard for us in the labs to support TACX or Radius, although we can do some with it. So for the most part, for the labs that we do, we use a local username and password, but in the real world, they're not going to do that. They're going to have you set up to use Radius and then use LDAP, Radius or TACX and LDAP, authenticating more than likely to a single sign-on via your Windows domain environment or whatever environment you've got. Logging. One of the things I will tell people all the time is this: logging is great, but you can log yourself to death too. If you log every single thing on the network, you can just drown in your logs. There is in the field of security, and Gil, you probably know more about this than me, but the they're rolling more and more AI into the ability to look at these logs. And so that hopefully the logs will, the AI will only present you with those parts of the log that it feels are important for you to look at. But again, you know, you can get to the point where you have nothing but the logs, or so much log that you can't even really tell what's going on in your network. All right. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on threat intelligence. I mean, it's really, there's a little bit here of the different companies or the different organizations that do threat intelligence. Gail and I had a very good discussion, 2 weeks ago, Gail, about
Yes.
some of the other groups. Mention a couple of those again that we were talking about instead of just the ones in the US.
Oh, you're talking about the UK cert and the Aussie cert?
Yep, the UK
Yeah.
cert and our
Yeah.
cert UK, and then it was Aussie Australian cert.
Yeah, with the UK, it's better to go to GHQ, I think it is. Hold on a minute, I haven't looked in a while.
This is I agree with you. The Auth one was real good. This one was good. It's so looking at different bulletins. There's a Google Chrome one, multiple vulnerabilities now up.
Let's see if I can find it real quick.
Yeah, here's a bunch of them. Good gracious.
No, that's not it. The GCHQ, gchq.gov.uk. They do a lot of good reporting.
Yeah, that's their
Yeah.
that's like their NSA, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very similar. But they run their national cyber center, or
Okay.
national. I think they call it the National Cybersecurity Center. I think that's their name for it.
Okay.
But they do a lot of good reporting out of here. I actually worked with these guys, and I worked with some of the Aussies when I was in the government.
All right. So there's some extra ones that you have that are the gchq.gov.uk. You've got UK cert. That one's a little bit harder. It's kind of ugly there, but and then you've got the authcert.org.au, which again, these are it's good, like you said, to have the ones that we have in here for our class. SANS, MITRE, our cert locally, but it's also very good to be looking at other types and other countries, because you will get a different look at the way things work.
The other thing, we're just real quick, that I always tell students is that, you know, they don't know where they're going to be working once
Right.
they leave us. You know, they're coming to us, they're getting an education, but they have no idea. They may go work for an international company. They may find themselves in Australia or Germany or Sweden or, you know, wherever. And so it's always good to know to look for those other places.
Definitely. And here's one that, again, I know this is a Cisco class, but guess what? Unit 42 is a Palo Alto group. And they do, they have a podcast, and they usually they'll go in and actually do a study. So they're actually, they usually write pretty in-depth reviews of certain issues that are going on. For instance, here's Nagios, which is like a network management software, and it's widely used for network monitoring and networking. But they go through and show you in-depth analysis of a CVE and in-depth of how it's being used in the real world, and then make suggestions. So they do a really good job. I mean, like I said, they're even looking through the malicious script and showing you how the script, what it does and what it changes on the particular server that it's exploited. So Unit 42, I've been very impressed with for the things that they do. But that's out of that's Palo Alto. If you just Google Unit 42, you can find it, or just unit42.paloaltonetworks.com. We do teach Palo Alto, by the way. So we teach that in our IT Academy. That's another one of our programs that we teach. Quick question. I know, Paul, you got it because I saw you there. Are y'all getting my emails about our ASC? April is ASC month.
Yes, sir.
I know Paul got it because I've seen you there. If you're not, you should probably be getting it because you're instructors, but we're meeting every Tuesday from 4 to 6 in Zoom. and going over some different things in the academy. So here's our CVE, the Common Vulnerabilities and Exposure Database, different platforms, Cisco's Talos and FireEye, which is, again, Palo Alto has Wildfire and a very similar setup. But the idea is in many of these new products, we have devices that are automatically pulling new definitions down, pulling down new exploits. And in fact, they're actually participating with these vendors in, if you allow them to send information to the vendors, so the vendors can be looking for new attacks and vulnerabilities that are actually trying to be exploited in the real world. So it just depends on your company's setup as to whether or not you allow that at all. Okay. Threat intelligence platforms, again, I don't think there's anything there. It's pretty short one. All right, this, folks, is 100% Security Plus stuff, no doubt. And that's why I can very easily see, Gail, why this would be very much part of this may be repetition for your students, because if they're taking this late in their career, they're going to know what data integrity is. They're going to know what a hash function is. They're going to understand the difference between symmetrical and asymmetrical encryption. But this is pretty much that in a nutshell. It's going through how hashes work. I do like the labs because you actually do create some hashes with OpenSSL and verify the hashes. So students see that. And I would stress the idea that if you're downloading software from the internet, to make sure you do check the hashes once you get the downloads to ensure they are authenticated or haven't been changed or are different than what was there. So any questions? Everybody, symmetrical encryption uses the same key to encrypt as decrypt. It's usually a pre-shared key, but it is a pre-shared key. Although you can do it with DiffieHellman and do some weird stuff to create secret pre-shared keys. The big thing about symmetrical encryption is it's faster. It's much faster than asymmetrical, which is our public-private key pairs. Okay. And then block ciphers versus stream ciphers. You'll see block ciphers take blocks and encrypt them, whereas a stream cipher encrypts it bit by bit. Different symmetrical encryption algorithms. Let's see. Bluefish should be on here, shouldn't it? Didn't that, I think that's asymmetric. I think that's no, I think it should be on there. But obviously AES and SEAL are faster than SEAL is faster than AES and getting up into higher bits. The larger bit keys should be more secure. I will go ahead and tell you nothing is unbreakable. The hope is that when you encrypt something, you will encrypt it to the level of where when someone decrypts it, it will no longer be useful for them. If it's attack at dawn and they encrypt it 3 days from now, well, the attack's over. So that's really our only hope, because I really feel that all encryption protocols will eventually be broken. Especially once we get into something like, quantum computing and the ability to just do ridiculously high data processing. Any questions? Do I understand these fairly well? I'm sure you do. Here is asymmetric, taking you're going to take an encryption key, which is depending on how you're using it, but it's your private key that you will encrypt it, and then you'll send it over to someone and they use your public key that you give to everyone to decrypt. And then hopefully your private key is always kept secure. The big difference, or one of the big items that's different between asymmetric and symmetric, other than just the way they encrypt and decrypt, is the entire infrastructure needed to support asymmetric. Asymmetric encryption is going to require that you have some way, some certificate authorities or some type of authority to issue public-private key pairs. There have been some fairly big issues with public-private key pairs in the past. So my chat, here's what's on. Yeah, I bet so. But there was actually at one point a key pair was assigned to quote Microsoft, and it wasn't really Microsoft, it was a hacker group. And both, obviously that particular entity that assigned that public-private key pair or that signing was very quickly pretty much put out of business because they did not do their due diligence. So again, sharing your public key, and then that way everyone has your public key, but you only have your private key. So there's ways to do it for both confidentiality. So encryption, that's where you take your private key. It really should be your private key is encrypting and your public key is decrypting, or vice versa. If they want to send you something, they can encrypt it with your public key, and then only your private key can decrypt it. And authentication, you take your private key and encrypt it, and the public key decrypts it, and that gives you your authentication. Saying that has to be Kelly that sent it because it can be decrypted with my public key. I will tell you this, DiffieHellman, I have read and read and read and read, trying to really fully understand the DiffieHellman algorithm. I come down to this, it's a way to get a shared secret key without actually sharing the shared secret key between the two devices to begin with. So in other words, you basically create a shared secret key that is shared between two devices using a mathematical formula. I used to joke and say it should take two really big numbers and throw those numbers together and then come out with another really big number that's used to encrypt things. And that's not totally true. But if anybody else can explain DiffieHellman better than me, I am all ears, because it's used a lot with VPNs. And what you basically do is you exchange this shared secret. You create through the exchange a shared secret key, but that key has never been entered into either device to begin with. So it's the best I got on DiffieHellman. Sorry, folks.
Hey, Kelly, I'm just curious. Have you seen any of the color videos that they do where they mix the colors?
I have. I've watched some of them.
Okay.
Not a lot of them. I need to watch more.
Oh, no, you don't. If you one should be enough. I mean,
yeah.
I mean,
here it is. You've got the agreed on color. You've got
right.
the secret color, and then you get a public color and exchange it, and then you put their secret colors back with that exchange public color, and you'll get the same color on both sides. So,
right.
Mathematically, what you're doing is you've got something you're beginning with, then you've got a secret, and that creates a color, and then there's an algorithm that allows them to put that color with their secret color again to come out with a shared secret key.
Well, I mean, I guess what really clicked it for me was the fact that, given this green color, right, you can't get, that blue and yellow were used, but you don't know how much blue and yellow were used.
Okay.
Right. And so now you connect it with your color and you come up with this other color. So you know how much of your color you used. And so now if you use this, when Bob gets this,
right,
he can use his blue color, because he knows creating this has his blue color in it. He can take the blue out of it and come up with the orange. And that's the whole to me, that's what's what keyed it off to me, is understanding. I'll send you the link to the video
yes.
that made me go, oh, is that all it is? I mean, because they talk about the big prime numbers and all that stuff. Yeah. And I'm a math person, so I really like the big prime numbers stuff, but yeah. Anyway, all right. Sorry to interrupt.
No, please do. Please send that out, and I'll put it in the class too, because I've struggled, forever with DiffieHellman, trying to get my point. My problem is right here. You've got these two colors. I got this part. But what, to me, how does Bob's public color and Alice's public color, other than the fact that the beginning agreed upon color, how are they related enough to put their secret color together and come back out with this final color that matches on both sides? again, if you send me the video, I'll watch it because I definitely struggle with this concept. Which I honestly, that's one thing I tell people all the time. I don't know everything. I can't know everything. I understand, you know, I can set up DiffieHellman all day long on a VPN connection. I understand that higher level DiffieHellmans are better, although it does at some point you got to be careful because you are starting to really slow down your process the higher you go. Yeah, if you can send it to me, I would greatly appreciate it. By the way, I do tell people cryptography and all of this. This is probably the part of our jobs that I call rocket science. So I'm not a math major. As we become, you know, as we look at certain things, if you're going to be working in the world of creating, you know, cryptographic algorithms, you are going to be basically a mathematician who's going to be working on these things. All right. Digital code signing. This is where you use a digital signature using private keys so that you can code sign and make sure with digital certificates. There are multiple ones out there that we can use that are available. One of the things I just teach people is obviously if you are looking to see if a site is secure, then you can look here and you can actually say the certificate is valid, but you can also drill down and look at who actually issued the particular issuer here. You see it, the certificate authority, and it says here Greater Manchester, and then you can actually look at the certification path. We actually, I tell you what, I may be able to show you a good example if it's still broken. Let's see if it's still broken. Yesterday, I was trying to access the help here. They got it fixed. I was trying to access help, and this would not load because somebody the certificate had expired. This particular site here had expired, and so it would not load and gave me the error message that it was not a valid certificate. I thought that was kind of wild. Did anybody else run into that yesterday? Didn't. Okay. Again, here's our public management, our public key infrastructures. We've got to look at who's going to be these certificate authorities and that certificate database and the store, which is on the local machine where you can actually bring these down and actually store them locally if you want to. This infrastructure must remain secure. This is one of the key things here. How many of you have actually requested or purchased a certificate before? I'm sure, Gail, you have. We have. We've done it for our web servers before. We also, though, have the ability. Okay, Paul got called away. We also have the ability to issue certificates locally that are not fully issued by a certificate store, but will still provide encryption. You just have to be really careful with those. We see those a lot when we're loading, like, for instance, ESXi boxes that we've got on the back end of our data center. We may not actually go out and get a full certificate for that particular device because of the fact that how much trouble it is to go get one. Although here on our campus, we could probably get one pretty easily because we already have a main certificate authority that we can then pull from. Okay. This is showing you again the same thing, how you can go up here and look at your certificates. So you can always view the site information and look at it, see who has issued the certificate, how long it's good for. One thing you do not want to do is don't let your certificates expire, because that is a pain in the rump. Now there are ways to actually have certificates revoked if need be, but that's actually if you were to tab over here, you would see that. And there's actually a full lab on this, so you can do it. So single root PKI topology versus a cross-certified CA. So you've got multiple CAs sharing information. And so you have trust relationships. So they cross-certify each CA certificate. snooze this. My machine really wants to do an update. And then we have hierarchical. X509 v3. This is a type of certificate that can be used for securing SSL traffic, so that we can do SSL and TLS encrypted connections. And you basically are able to connect, download the public key, encrypt the data, send it up, and it's decrypted with a private key locally, so that you're able to, I believe I got that right, so that you're able to connect to a remote web server and have a fully encrypted session between you and that web server. The one thing to be careful of, though, is sometimes it only encrypts like your username and password or the authentication information. So you want to be careful that it's actually encrypting all the traffic if it is in fact doing that. The problem with that is you're dealing with asymmetric encryption, unless it plays some tricks in there, and so you end up with it's a little bit harder and a little bit more processor intensive for it to do that. All right, folks, that's pretty much it. I do want to just, this endpoint protection, this is easy. Endpoint protection, we talk about using malware bytes, using some type, and I know that's a free one that's not that good, but hey, it's free. Using host-based malware protection, and we talk about the difference between signature-based, heuristic-based, and behavior-based. Signature obviously is it actually matches a signature. It's like an antivirus signature. Heuristics looks at the general feature, so it's a program that is opening up new processes and really shouldn't be opening up new processes. And then also you can use behavior-based that looks at suspicious behavior. And one of those things could be, a good example would be a great increase in DNS traffic. And to come to find out, they're actually encoding control information in DNS traffic. Okay. Any questions? That's pretty much this section here. Is, again, you're looking at advanced malware protection, email security appliance, web security appliance. Here's the Cisco marketing part here, because that's one of their devices that can be used to provide that type of security. Which the good news about these is it does go through and try to clean your email and provide spam filtering, provide malware filtering. And then same thing with your web security appliance. It's designed to be a proxy that can blacklist hosts from reaching certain dangerous locations, or also to provide proxy abilities when you are just wanting to control where your particular users can get to. All right. Any questions? Joseph, Gail, and Paul, I know Paul had stepped away. Are y'all pretty close to being finished with the course? Everybody?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You're probably way past where I'm at here. So, but my goal is we probably we'll meet next week and the next. I won't really have a whole lot, much more to do in terms of really lecturing on out. But if there's questions you have, we'll meet. We can meet and talk about things. And if you have any questions on the.
Well, one of the things I would hope that you maybe, if we're going to ask for things to cover, is like some of the applications that are used for the analysis and stuff like that. That's something that I'm interested in, because a lot of the stuff that we're doing now basically is the buildup for that, right?
Right. Okay, we can do that. Yeah, we'll talk about some. We'll talk about them, and we'll see if we can't. Obviously, out here in 28 is where we're 27, 28 is where we're at, and we'll play with some of those.
If you can give us if something that shows us like an analysis, like something that's real,
Okay.
and show us how you
do real, because I don't have real.
Well, something like a case study or something where this is how, take us from what happened and how you would really go about detecting it and stuff like that. Is that possible to do something like that?
Yeah, we can do that. I'll try to. It'll be very similar to what you're going to be doing with your final exam then. But yeah, we can do that. Well,
Kelly, on that idea, how about I know that Doug put out a video. It's a couple of years old, but where he goes through an analysis that might help. I'll send you that link.
Yeah,
also,
send me that. That'd be great.
Yeah. And then there's another one from one of the Security Onion conferences where a guy talked about how he uses, Security Onion. And I'll send you both of those links. One's to the conference meeting, and then the other one's just something that Doug put together to show people.
Yeah, that would be very good. Thank you. I would really
that'd
be
be
excellent.
excellent. I'll post that in the class and get it out to everybody. The other thing, hopefully for too long, we're actually working to get access to a cyber range. And then maybe we'll be able to share access to that as we move forward to some of our instructors. So I'm going to stop the